Have you guys ever played a Final Fantasy role-playing game?
Role play? You mean the video game or a tabletop role playing game of Final Fantasy? I have my homebrew. That's why I'm asking.
The video games are role-playing games
Sure.
in the traditional Japanese sense.
In the sense of a video game, yes.
What do you think RPG stands for, Dave?
I think it stands for a different. It's not Dungeons and Dragons. You're not pretending to be Cloud, are you?
You're not.
You're not.
You're not.
I pretend to be a Chocobo.
I pretend to be Sephiroth.
So okay.
I don't know.
So for real, how much time did you spend in Final Fantasy VII at the Chocobo racing casino or whatever it was, trying to get a gold one? Took a long time back in the day. Any of you remember this?
I never played.
It's 1997. Imagine me, freshman year of college.
In your mid-30s.
Freshman year of college. My roommate, who is a sometimes listener of the podcast, just hung out playing Final Fantasy VII, and we watched him try forever to get a golden Chocobo. Took weeks. It felt like years.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Now he can own one with a number on it.
That's true.
How much do you think that the number 69 Chocobo is going to go for? Think about it.
Probably $420 at least.
At minimum.
Hello and welcome to episode 322 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest summons, limit breaks, and chocobos for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Narshe. With me on the line from somewhere in Midgar, it's the one and only Devon O'Donnell, aka Doomwake.
Apparently I've moved. This is news to me.
This may be news to you as well. We have the godfather of Zanarkand on the line. It's Dave Harbarger.
I need some kind of giant sword. The Buster, I suppose. Buster and makes me feel good.
You know, that song was the first dance of my wedding.
Was it really?
Yeah, you were there. Don't you remember me?
I don't remember it being Ghostbusters.
Dancing like Ghostbusters?
No, I don't.
Well, I guess you were overserved at the open bar.
It was the first time I'd seen people in months.
He was too busy busting.
That's right.
Yeah, busting a move. Busting a limit break.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all kinds of stuff.
Now, astute listeners are going to say, that's not the usual boilerplate that they share at the top of every Dive Down episode. And that's because this episode is a little different. We're not talking about Magic the Gathering. We're only talking about Final Fantasy. It's too bad Shane can't show up to do a surprise What's That in Your Pocket and do a video game episode.
I was like, it's a crossover episode between What's That in Her Pocket and the Dive Down. The crossover that no one is asking for, but everyone will get at some point in the future.
He actually just had a copy of Final Fantasy VII and had like an OG PS1 just somehow in his pocket. I don't know how you would fit that in there, but
It was just, 3 discs? 4 maybe?
So Stan, have you Final Fantasied? Which ones have you played?
I've played Final Fantasy VI.
Okay.
I've played Final Fantasy Tactics 2.
Mm-hmm.
I've played Final Fantasy VII Remake,
Mm-hmm.
but not Reborn.
Right.
And I've just dabbled in the MMO.
Really? You've MMO'd. The dip my toe.
was the water warm?
The water was very nice.
Yeah. I've played Final Fantasy 1 on Nintendo when it came out on the NES when I was 10, probably, or 11. I've played 3, which is also known as 6. Is that right? The Super Nintendo one that's very popular. Sort of like it used to be known. It's known as 6 in Japan and 3 in America or something like that.
Which is, yes, that's the one I played.
I'm going to get a lot of emails about that. I know. And then, yes, I've observed 7, but I haven't touched a Final Fantasy in nearly 30 years. Haven't heard that name around here in 30 years.
Devin, have you ever Final Fantasied?
You might be surprised to hear this. I have not played a single game. Not a minute of any game. Not because I don't want to, just like, I don't know, never interested me.
Do you video game other than because I know you Slay the Spire and Balatro. What's your video game experience like in general?
These days, not really anymore. I was, into it a lot growing up, in the late teens and stuff like that. Played like GTA, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like all those, games you would play growing up as a teen. But yeah, these days, I mean, really just card games. Like I play Magic, I play a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Gwent.
I started playing this. I don't know if you guys have heard of this Vibes TCG, which is like this. It's like a penguin. Basically, it's a game of a bunch of penguins they have at SCGs. The only reason I started playing that is because they have 20Ks at all of the SCGs, and the 20K that happened this weekend only had 80 people in it. So I'm trying to get into that, but
there you go.
I see a digital version of the Vibes TCG on the Epic's Game Store. Is this the Pudgy Penguins game?
yes,
And there's a physical version as well?
yes.
Is it good?
I've only played like 2 games. It's interesting so far. I don't know if I necessarily love it, but I mean, 80-person 20K. I'm not going to say no to that.
Why don't they just give everybody the $50?
Yeah, we'll just chop it 80 ways, Like,
Yeah.
Is this where we find out that this is like a NFT or Bitcoin-based gaming technology?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
I'm like 99% sure that it is. So,
How did I know? Wow.
shocker,
you know
right?
what? After I asked the question, I now see the paragraph on the Epic Game Store about the blockchain NFT game
Yeah.
that the video game version of it is based on.
All right, we've gone far afield. What are we actually doing on this episode?
We're talking about Pudgy Penguins, Dave.
We're not talking about that.
The latest Vibe expansion. I want to talk about this 1/2 penguin.
No, we're talking about the Final Fantasy MTG crossover. Standard legal, and thus legal everywhere else. We haven't done a spoiler episode in a very long time, and we figured this is an event. This is a momentous occasion. There's some cool cards in here, and we wanted to discuss them. So we've each picked 5 of our favorites, and we'll see how many we can get through
Yes, that's right.
in as much detail as possible. Also, this is the first week back after Devon took Hartford by storm.
I don't know about that.
Prowess, 35% of the meta.
That took the Hartford by storm. I don't know if I did specifically, but
Well, you were there. You were our correspondent on the ground in beautiful Connecticut.
Yeah. And all we have to say about that is we were talking to Lawson Zandy. Lawson Zandy played 15 rounds, right? Or 14 rounds?
he played all 15.
He played 15 rounds and he had 11 mirror matches, Stan. 11 prowess mirror matches.
Isn't that too many?
It is. And Devin, you said you played 9 rounds?
I played 9 rounds and I played 6 mirrors.
Yeah. Not a whole lot to talk about other than that, but I thought we might want to just recognize things are weird in Standard right now.
Weird.
Sorry, friends.
Oh, and we'll get into it in a second, but
Housekeeping.
Let's housekeep. We have a Patreon. You can support us directly at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also get some Dive Down swag at thedivedown.com/store. You can support us through some of our sponsors, including Heavy Play, who will give you 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com if you use promo code TheDiveDown2025. These are my personal favorite MTG card gaming accessories. You will like them too. You can support us while playing Magic Online with a Mana Trader subscription. If you use promo code TheDiveDown, all one word, you'll get 25% cash back after 3 months of their service. Also, I'm going to repeat a message from last week about a Pauper tournament that's happening not far from Chicago, hosted or organized by one of our patrons. All Midwest Magic fans, especially fans of Pauper. There's a tournament on June 14th called the Paperoncini. You guys thought that was a really clever thing. I actually don't know what it means, but I guess it's a thing.
Pepperoncini?
Yeah.
Pepperoncini?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
small
spicy
peppers.
Okay. It's happening at Forever Forward Games in Clinton, Wisconsin. There's prizes for the top 8. They're going to be raffling off signed Pauper cards and play set of signature cards in the format. It's $35 to get in. Registration is available on Spice Rack. We'll add a link to the show notes, but if you look up Paperoncini on Spice Rack, you'll find it. The patron/tournament organizer, Alec, told me that among the prizes, first place gets a playset of Ponders that are signed by Mark Teeden. Have you heard of Mark Teeden, you guys?
I have. That's kind of cool.
Now, did you know that he does Magic the Gathering art?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. The odd thing is he's actually signing the Dan Scott versions. JK, LOL. That was not in the ad copy, but I thought it was a good joke.
Kind of awkward.
Yeah, Mark, what are you doing? All right, check it out at Spice Rack. Find the link in our show notes. That's our housekeeping. What do you guys want to talk about first? Connecticut or Final Fantasy? The starting town.
Connecticut for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, not
You wanna
even
talk
5
about
minutes.
it,
Yeah,
Devin?
we can discuss it. So, yeah, as the boys alluded to, I did play in the regional championship in Hartford this past weekend. Big shocker, I played prowess. So did 36% of the whole room. Yeah, metagame breakdown. It's funny because it was 36% day one, and based on the conversion rates and win percentages, it actually went up to 40% of the metagame on day two.
Which is pretty wild for it to get even higher.
Yeah. And well, this is, but 2 weeks ago, Minneapolis, it was 33%. So all of these numbers are with, like, in consideration of everybody was trying to beat it. And still, the thing that gets me is the win percentage. I forgot exactly who it was. It might have been, I think it was Optimus Tom on Twitter. Optimus posted like a whole bunch of win rates over the weekend. And the non-mirror win percentage for prowess, 53%, which doesn't sound like a lot because we're used to, crazy numbers like in the lows, like high 50s, low 60s with Oko, Nadu, Hogak, that kind of stuff. But the thing is, when, every single person in the room is gunning for you and you're still winning more than half of your matches, that even though it's only 53, it still kind of is an alarm bell in that regard. And then the other funny thing is there were 4 events over the weekend, and there were the RC, the 10K, and 2 challenges. 3 of those 4 events were won by Mono Red with main deck Magebane Lizard.
Main deck.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And this is all in standard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why do you think Corey Steelcutter is so much more impressive in standard than other formats?
The best answer I can give you is that it is a modern power level card in a standard format.
Yeah.
Like, the card is just completely obscene. I keep going back to this, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It feels like a card that they had in testing, like they didn't quite have it the way they have it now, and they were doing a bunch of testing with it in like their, future league or whatever they do with whatever they test with. And they were like, this card is not as impactful as we want it to be. Let's see if we can maybe tweak the numbers a little bit. And it seems to me that it's a card that, like, the numbers got tweaked, but they didn't test a lot with it because, like, why does it have haste? Why does it have trample? Why does it trigger on your opponent's turn? I have questions.
Yeah. Good questions. These are good questions.
Yeah.
People want to know.
I don't have an answer. But yeah, Hartford was relatively uneventful for me. I played 6 mirrors. I went 3-3 in the mirrors, and then I beat Black White Pixie and Mono Black Demons, and then I lost my win it in for day 2 to Gruul Delirium, which was a pretty sweet deck. There was actually, I think, 3 or 4 of the Delirium decks in day 2, which was not something that people had expected. But yeah, tough match there. Won some die rolls in the mirror, lost some die rolls in the mirror. Not a ton of interesting things happened. And I don't know. Yeah, standard is standard.
It's wild to me how much one card can make a difference in something that was pretty fun for a lot of people for a long time. And then now there's one card and everything is kind of warped around it, which might not be totally true. I'm not totally familiar with standard. Like, it might be a couple of cards that are causing a weird rock, paper, scissors situation or whatever, but it is still impressive. We make one little mistake that's just too good, and here you go.
Yeah, Cutter's a lot. I mean, I would be very shocked. I know this is we're not talking about bans, but I'd be very shocked if there were not changes that were made in the near future. It's a little surprising because the Final Fantasy Pro Tour is actually a week before the next ban announcement, so there's a chance we don't get anything until after the Pro Tour, which I want to try and be optimistic, but it's tough when you see, almost 40% of the room on one deck.
And that's Hartford, friends.
That's it.
That's how it goes.
No pizza, no nothing.
No, I didn't get pizza, but there was this really, really dope barbecue place that was like, not even a 5-minute walk from the event site. That place was really good.
All right.
Bear's Barbecue. Check it out.
Check it out. The best thing in Hartford.
Easily. Better than the Prowess Mirrors.
All right. let's talk Final Fantasy. There's some weird stuff in this set. This set is crazy, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure that I'm ready to identify what cards are good here, but can I give a highlight quickly of some of the weird things that are in this set that we'll talk about in a little bit?
Please do.
We have a Saga variant that is a creature, which is great. I mean, it makes sense for summons. I like the idea that they use this mechanic for it. But yeah, that's kind of a weird thing to think about mechanically. We also have a living weapon variant in this set. So I was definitely out looking for what's the good living weapon that can compete in a world where Corey Steel Cutter just came out, which is essentially a living weapon as well.
Every turn.
Yeah, every turn. So that was another thing that I saw that was interesting. There's a whole bunch of like Legends Matter cards, of course, that is interesting. I don't know. There's a bunch of things that seem kind of complicated and wild in here.
Do you know why the video game series is called Final Fantasy?
I don't.
Devin, do you know the story?
Nope.
There's a chance that someone's going to write in and say this is apocryphal, but the lore goes that Square was a video game studio in Japan that had failed to make a successful game, but had the funding to produce one last game for the Super Nintendo, I think. I think Final Fantasy 1 came out for the Super Nintendo. Maybe
No, it's on regular NES.
original NES.
Yeah.
Fine. Point being, they had the chance to do one last game, so they called it their Final Fantasy. And lo and behold, it was a huge success, and it revived the studio and birthed one of the biggest video game franchises of all time.
Oh, true. I did forget to mention the Final Fantasies that I actually spent the most time playing when I was a kid. Game Boy, original Game Boy Final Fantasy were amazing. They had one called Final Fantasy Adventure that was basically a Zelda style game. And then there was another one called Final Fantasy Legend that was fantastic as well. That was more of like the traditional role-playing game version of it. Those were both very, very good and well-loved Game Boy games that I had growing up.
It just makes me wonder, though, what if this is the final attempt at a Magic set for Wizards of the Coast, and they've got a lot riding on this one, too.
You actually have it?
I have it right here next to me.
my
Here's Final
goodness.
Fantasy Legend 2
That's crazy.
from my Game Boy drawer that's right next to where I record.
You still have the OG Game Boy? Oh,
Wow,
look
the
at that.
DMG.
Oh my god. Not even the color, just the actual OG.
No, this is the OG spinach one. It works.
The screen is so
Did you hear that?
small.
Hang on. I'm going to record
I know
this.
I
Body's
heard
so
it.
big.
I heard it.
Hang on here. You guys, listen closely for this, Dan. Here you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Gosh, beautiful sound.
Mm.
Beautiful sound. And
What's in your pocket? An original Game Boy.
yeah, powered by 30 AAA batteries.
Exactly. No light, no backlight. You have to sit at the right position to see it. Okay.
Okay,
Cards.
fine.
I guess.
There's a lot of them. We have 15 here with
Yeah.
several honorable mentions, I guess.
I snuck in a sixth one in there. It was a quick one, so.
I want you guys to go first. I want to go later.
I don't. I want you to say your first one first because of the aptly titled name of the card.
Okay, the first one on my list was Starting Town. This is a land-town. This land enters tapped unless it's your first, second, or third turn of the game. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can tap it and pay 1 life to add 1 mana of any color. I did want to note this card. This card is just a better version of Mana Confluence, which itself was a better version of, kind of better version. I guess that first sentence makes it a little tough for it to be straight on better. A better version of City of Brass, but this card is pretty good, right? I think this card is good in Magic today. It might be way better in Standard than it is in anything else. I know that it'll help maybe aggro decks in Standard or something like that behave a little bit better. Not that they need help right now, but it could help mana get more complicated in Standard. The thing that I did though after this was I took a look to see like who was playing Mana Confluence in Pioneer right now, and turns out it's nobody, friends. It's not really anybody playing more than a 1 of Mana Confluence, which is a card that goes in and out of use in certain decks in Pioneer, and of course no one is playing this in Modern. So just as a cool card that I think will have an impact in Standard and might see a little bit of play in Pioneer depending. What do you all think about Starting Town?
I'm pretty excited for it for Standard. More specifically in the context of after rotation, because for the listeners at home, the rotation is happening, I believe, either late August or early September. And rotating out is going to be all of the pain lands and the allied fast lands. So we're losing a good amount of mana fixing in standard, and I'm pretty excited to have this available on the docket, more specifically for 3-color decks like Esper Pixie, Jeskai Oculus, 3-color decks that have a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s. Like you wouldn't want to play this in like a Jeskai control deck, for example, because that deck is looking to play 6, 7, 8 turns or more than that. But yeah, I think this is huge for standard.
Makes sense to me. I do like that it taps for colorless. Yeah, I wonder if there's additional synergies we can get out of playing a town, and maybe that's something worth looking out for as well. If the faster aggro decks that would really benefit from this card in particular would have certain town synergies as well. Even if this is the only town, just like giving something some additional flavor text upside could be nice too.
Okay, short story on starting town.
Yeah,
who wants to go next?
Mana Confluence. Let's go for the first one I have here, Machinist's or Machinist's Arsenal. So this is 4 and a white, 5 mana equipment. It has the Job Select, which is the new living weapon that David alluded to earlier. When the equipment enters, make a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 for each artifact you control and is an artificer in addition to its other types. And its equip cost is 4. Now, when Dave was talking about, living weapons / job select cards that might be able to compete with Corey Stonecutter, this is not exactly that. But there is a good amount of artifacts synergies in standard. There is like Spyglass Siren, Novice Inspector, cheap stuff that put artifacts into play. You have the Mendicant Core, which is the blue-white star 3 from Aether Drift that's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. There's Memory Guardian and the blue-white Voyage Home, so you have some affinity stuff too. So
right.
there's a good amount of artifacts like stuff there. It's just like missing another big payoff. And if you slap this thing onto a Spyglass Siren, like +2/+2 each artifact for on a flyer, it seems like the equip cost is 4, so it's a little pricey, but I feel like there could be something there. But really just in the context of standard.
Does seem pricey for anything other than standard, but you can certainly make a big creature out of this.
Is this the best job select card you guys found?
Because I don't think so.
Okay.
I have one.
None of mine have job select.
Do you want me to talk about the one that I liked?
Yeah.
Okay, the one that I thought was interesting and maybe had a shot even being played in prowess somewhere is Astrologian's Planisphere, which is a generic in a white for an artifact, a generic in a blue for an artifact equipment, job select. Equipped creature is a wizard in addition to its other types. Hey, you can cast that Wizard's Lightning Stand. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell and whenever you draw your third card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And then it has equip 2. So number one, I was like, wow, there's a better living weapon in this set because it's a 1/1 and not a 0/0. And also it's perma prowess like our old friend
Sprite Dragon.
Sprite Dragon.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, so it's a Sprite Dragon. It doesn't fly, but you can put it on other creatures if you want to once the creature dies so that you can keep doing your perma prowess to other things. It's not that expensive to equip.
How hard is it to draw 3 cards per turn? Consistently?
Not very.
Not very. Mishra's Bauble, Manamorphose, Preordain. Like, that deck does have a lot of cantrips.
It's clearly not better than Cutter. You know what I mean? Which is part of what I thought was funny about this card existing right after Cutter came out. I was like,
that is good.
Maybe this would have been a cool 2-drop. Oh, wait. Yeah, not now. I don't know. Maybe it's Cutter's 5 and 6 or something, but I did feel like it was an interesting card that was maybe of the power level to make it work.
Yeah, I don't hate this. The fact that you get the body up front, you get basically on the turn where you are drawing your third card, it feels like a little bit better than prowess because you're getting that extra bonus. Like if your third non-creature spell am I reading that correctly? So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, whenever you draw your third card. So you would cast a non-creature spell, get the counter, and then that would be your third card. Then you would get the other counter. Yeah.
Right.
So you get a little bit of an extra bonus there. I don't know. Could be something. It's funny you bring up Sprite Dragon because comparing this to Sprite Dragon, do you think this would be better than Sprite Dragon in the Prowess deck?
The only reason I like it better than Sprite Dragon is because Sprite Dragon always died and never left anything behind.
True.
Yeah.
Right? And this leaves something behind that you can do something with if you get another creature down and want to make it bigger. Like all of a sudden your Monastery Swiftspear has double prowess. You know what I mean?
So this procs from both the non-creature spells as well as drawing 3 cards. So you can just so you could put a lot of counters on a creature in a single turn if you're like literally storming off while drawing cards.
No, it's draw your third card each turn. So that only procs once.
I see.
It's like why it's that, it's like so slightly different than Flurry, which is like Flurry is like whenever you cast your second spell, this is whenever you draw your third card.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things that trigger when you draw your second spell of a turn. So it's weird that the way that this is worded, but yeah, it's sort of like they gave it slightly faster than prowess.
Not mentioned yet in this episode, but this is one of those sets similar to the Dungeons and Dragons crossover sets where they make up a bunch of like weird mechanic names that are thematically appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
This one has actually one of the weirdest, where the equip ability is also just called Diana. So it says Diana equip 2.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's some callback to some character that we don't know anything about. But yeah, there's a few funny ones like that.
Diana, if you listen to the dive down, call in, explain yourself.
Yeah, Diana. It says in the Final Fantasy wiki that Diana is from Dimensions.
Oh.
I don't even know what that means. She's a childhood friend of Saul and the sister of Aegis. Made into one of the Warriors of Darkness by Crystal of Lux. Anyway, that's enough on this card that I'm really not sure about, but I think it's the best job select card that I saw.
I have one more artifact equipment.
Okay.
Just to round out the theme.
Is it Bustin' makes you feel good?
Are you busting?
I'm busting, y'all. Buster Sword, 3 generic. For an artifact equipment, equipped creature gets +3/+2. It costs 2 to equip. Very reasonable. But whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. So at minimum, you're casting a spell that costs 3 MV or less. But you're putting on a creature that could have 1 or more power. So it's easy to imagine a scenario where you're casting spells that cost 4 or 5 mana for free, while also drawing cards in the process. This is good, and I like it.
As good as a sword can be.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, in this 6-ed world. I just wonder, maybe you don't need to cascade into rhinos to cheat rhinos into play.
Stan, you sicko. You're immediately like, put this on. I'm like, play this with Fervent Champion, and you're like, put this immediately into
Rhino.
Yeah.
Why not? And what's beautiful is that you don't need rhinos in hand to make this card good. You can cast other spells for free while also drawing cards. And heck, put a Cascade spell in there too. What do I have to prove?
I hadn't thought about Fervent Champion with this, but that is kind of nice, Dave.
Yeah, to hit somebody, draw a card, and also cast a spell for free.
Yeah,
make
the free
2/4/4 tramplers.
Yeah, and free equip. No, we're on to something else, Stan.
This is my card spoiler selection.
I know, it's true. I do have to say,
you have to agree with everything I say.
Fyodor Sasha from our chat, Stan, has been playing a lot of rhinos lately and doing well.
Yes.
And playing Magmatic Hellkite
Hell yeah.
in the deck, which is pretty sweet. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Buster Sword is clearly a card that is going to be good in some place because it's like the marquee item of Final Fantasy, of a certain version of Final Fantasy, right? So it has to be pretty good.
Yeah. And let's talk about Cloud, Midgar Mercenary.
Sure.
Since it's his sword.
That's right. He's the Buster.
So I'm looking at someone else's notes here, but Cloud Midgar Mercenary is dub for a legendary human soldier mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
When Cloud enters, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle. That sounds familiar. And as long as Cloud is equipped, if an ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Can you imagine a scenario where you're clouding into the Buster Sword, drawing 2 cards, and casting 2 free spells?
with 5 MV or less.
That sounds good. That's a Splinter Twin situation, right?
You know what else is a Splinter Twin situation? If you equip Corey Steel Cutter onto Cloud and then play 2 spells, you get 2 tokens.
Yeah.
Because we needed to make Corey Steel Cutter better.
I was going to say, do you know what the Splinter Twin situation here is? This finds your Corey Steel Cutter.
Yes.
That's what the Splinter
true.
Twin situation is.
That is true.
Yeah, and that's in modern or in Pioneer and Standard.
Yeah. Also finds your Astrologian's Planisphere.
Sure.
True.
Yeah, the card that they designed 9 months before Corey Steel Cutter because of all the licensing with Final Fantasy had to be clear. And they're like, you know what? Why don't we make a better version of this and put it in Dragonstorm?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Cloud. What do we think about Cloud? Okay. What do we just think about the idea of having Stoneforge Mystic-ish in Pioneer specifically? So we've talked a lot about Standard, but what do we think about having access to that in Pioneer? Does that go in your Hammer deck,
I think
Devin,
so.
that you were playing?
Yeah, I think so.
That seems pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting a ton of value out of the, if the ability equipment attached to it triggers, you're not getting a ton out of that, but just at more added consistency at finding specifically Hammer. Because the deck that I played before was playing the Kellen, which is the adventure. The spell is 2 mana, go friend and equipment, and then the creature is a 3 mana 2/2. So the fact that you get the body and the search both for 2 mana is, I think, a pretty significant upgrade to having to spend 2 on the spell and then 3 on the creature after you get the equipment.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's to stop you from playing 1 Buster Sword in that deck?
Good.
Because you know what Hammer always, I mean, Hammer has like alternate game plans like that, where it's like we have 1 sword in it, or we have, sometimes they have 1 Batter Skull in builds and stuff like that.
And I was already playing Fervent Champion in that deck anyways.
Right.
So
yeah. And so there you go. So I think that this effect coming to Pioneer specifically could lead to some of these equipment decks getting better.
Yeah.
Legitimately. Now, do we have any feelings about having 8 Stoneforge Mystics in Modern? I don't really.
Nah, because the card you're getting is Cauldron. This doesn't put Cauldron into play, so.
Right. The card you're getting is Cauldron. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I said Batter Skull. Cauldron is the card that's sitting in that slot these days. And it's sometimes you're getting Hammer, sometimes you're getting Cauldron. I think you're right. You're not playing this over Stoneforge Mystic. So I would be surprised if this card saw play in like an 8 Stoneforge deck. But
why would this not see play over Stoneforge specifically?
In Modern?
Yeah.
Because you want to go get Cauldron complete and cheat it into play for 2 mana. That's the backup plan.
I see what you're saying.
Stoneforge Mystic brings you now.
Right. Because you can cheat something into plain instant speed.
Right.
This just doubles up effects. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. If there was some reason to play a bunch of swords in Modern or things that have more triggered abilities, maybe, but I don't think it's going to make a impact there. But I do think like I said, I think there's a good chance that it gets played in Pioneer.
Yeah, I can see it. I think honestly, there's an equipment theme in this set, and there was already an equipment theme in the Phyrexia set, so I could see it in Standard too. All right, who's up next?
Who wants to pick? I think it's you, Dev.
All right, it's me. Well, I mean, I talked about him in the intro. Let's talk about my spirit animal, Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier.
Ooh.
I forgot to include the mana cost, but this is 2 and a black for a 3/3 legendary creature, human avatar soldier. Whenever Sephiroth enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. If this is the 4th time this ability has resolved this turn, transform Sephiroth. And transforms into Sephiroth, 1 Winged Angel. I believe I didn't put down the 1 Winged Angel's power and toughness. I think it's a 5/5 or a 4/4. Somebody can fact check me on that. It is a legendary creature, Angel Nightmare Avatar. It does have flying. It says, as this creature transforms into Sephiroth, 1 Winged Angel, you get an emblem with whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. And whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. If you do, draw that many cards.
A lot of text.
There's a lot going on here.
There's a lot of transforming that goes on in Final Fantasy. One person turns into another thing. They die and come back as another thing.
There is.
So, okay.
Flip
Makes
side
sense.
Flip side is a 5/5. I confirm that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there is a lot of potential with this card in a couple of different spots. So I'm, mostly standard brain these days, and I think there is this sort of like sacrifice shell with Sephiroth. There's Bartolome, which is the black white 2/1 sack a thing, put a counter on it. You have a bunch of like black and white creatures that when they die, they make a 1/1, so you can kind of go off with that. And then somebody had in one of my recent streams, somebody sent me a deck tech for this like black green version of Brood Scale, and they pointed out that this card actually works pretty well with Eldrazi spawns. So with like Brood Scale, Kozilek's Command, Glaring Fleshraker, because you sacrifice the spawn for mana and that triggers Sephiroth, it's kind of easy to flip it because you only have to sack 4 spawns in a turn. So, I mean, I don't know if there's something there, but maybe like Scales, Brood Scale adjacent kind of thing, splashing for this, maybe not. What do you guys think?
Wasn't expecting you to go modern there at the last minute.
I know.
I'll admit.
Surprise.
The thing about this card is the last ability on the one-winged angel, sacrificing a number of creatures, draw that many cards. It feels like you should just win the game when you do that. That you should be able to set off some kind of chain.
Yeah, giving up material.
I'm not smart enough to know what that chain is, but that's sort of what he does, I think, in game, Sephiroth, when he goes all supernova. I do like that it's a 3-mana Blood Artist.
Yeah, just blood. A 3-mana Blood Artist that does extra stuff.
It's a 3-mana. I like that it's a 3-mana Blood Artist that does a ton of extra stuff. So the Blood Artist ability on its face is already like we know good and has a lot of baked in synergies. Adding all this extra text feels like it's just asking to be broken. For the additional cost of 1 mana seems like quite reasonable. So yeah, would not be surprised to see if this card does something silly or just ends up unlocking some crazy combo shenanigans.
It's like kind of cool that it almost replaces itself when it comes into play too, because you get the card out of it, and then if you get to flip it, even if they kill it, you get the emblem out of it too. So even if they kill the flip side, you still have that Blood Artist emblem. That's nice.
Yeah, the funny thing for me was I was starting to think, is there a way to just get a bunch of Blood Artist emblems and like just stack them, just do it over and over again to get like 5 of the emblems? It dies, then you bring it back, and then yada yada yada.
I feel like they're probably dead by the time you get the second one.
Probably. So maybe you only need 2.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, but it's nice to be able to get a permanent buff off of this card.
Yeah.
You do have to do it 4 times in a turn to flip it. I guess the one thing too about the backside is just like it's got no resilience at all. Like it doesn't have lifelink, or it doesn't have like, I don't know, Ward 2 or something on there to make it a little harder to interact with. But yeah, I think just it being a 3-drop that turns into something threatening seems pretty good.
David, do you want to hit us with another one? I feel like I stole one of your cards.
You guys have gotten a lot of my cards.
Well, now Dave's got to steal one of Stan's.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about one card that I think is bad, but I think is cool. I think it's not actually going to see play, but I've looked at it and been like, maybe. Lightning Army of 1 for a generic red and a white for a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier. First strike, trample, lifelink, and has an ability called Stagger that says whenever lightning deals combat damage to a player, until your next turn, if a source would deal damage to that player or permanent that player controls, it deals double that damage instead. Does this energy?
Oh,
I hadn't thought about that.
I did read this card a lot and couldn't figure out what to make of it. I don't think it energies.
It makes all your tokens do double damage?
I would be surprised if it energies.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. One, your energy plan, like you can't only rely on tokens. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you are relying on like a handful of threats to kind of snowball and they get you into a flage. And if this is just supposed to be payoff for tokens, you don't need a payoff for tokens. Your tokens are the payoff.
Right.
That's one. I also think at 3 mana, you want your 3 mana permanent to come down and do a thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's, what is it, Teysa Light Scribe from Cons, which has haste with some additional upside, Or more ideally, it's Spyro or Fable, which is coming down, drawing you cards or producing material and like kind of setting you up to 2 for 1 your opponent or 3 for 1. For that reason, like this seems slow in that shell.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fair. I guess the thing that I just thought was interesting about it was this is a cool payoff for a go wide deck, where it's basically like, wow, all of my little crappy things do double damage on this turn because she hits first and then they do their damage, right? So it's not like you have to do anything weird. You don't have to lightning people. And then perhaps if you hit someone and then hit them with a lightning bolt, it also does 6 damage after that. So maybe there's like a go wide burn strategy of some kind that can be kind of bolstered by this in either Pio. Feels like a Pioneer level power card to me.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up Pioneer because I was going to mention that there is a burn deck that people are already playing right now with like the Kumana Faces Kakazan, Play with Fire, Shock, Boros Charm. This card also, I believe, because it's until your next turn, so it works like if you have an Eidolon in play and you hit them with lightning on their turn, the Eidolon is doubled. So that's kind of cool.
That's hilarious. Yeah, go ahead, take 4 damage for casting a spell.
Yeah, so like, Eidolon, Boros Charm, Shock, that kind of like burn stuff in Pioneer. I don't know if there's enough burn for it in Standard, but there is like that mobilize mechanic from the previous set that it kind of works well with because you get to hit the first strike off lightning and then your mobilize tokens deal double damage. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah. There's a lot of keywords packed onto this card though, so it seemed pretty cool to me.
That's why I kept looking at it. It's like the fact that it has first strike and trample with 3 power actually makes it seem like it could do the thing it wants to do. It's just, is the thing it wants to do in a shell that's strong enough for any format?
Don't know. But I don't know lightning.
We'll find out.
Stan, why don't you pick one?
I want to talk about Cecil Dark Knight, which was an early spoil from like months ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We never really talked about it. We never talked about it. Single black for a legendary human knight with Death Touch. It's a 2/3, and it has the classic ability Darkness, which the reminder text in case you forgot what Darkness does. Whenever Cecil deals damage, you lose that much life. Then if your life total is less than or equal to half your starting life total, untap Cecil and transform it. What a dorky name, by the way. Cecil. Apologies to all of our listeners named Cecil.
He looks scary, though.
You're not sorry.
I'm actually not. You're right. I specifically hate those listeners. Cecil transforms into Cecil the Redeemed Paladin, whose color indicator is white. Again, it's a human knight, but that's a 4/4 lifelinker with Protect, which is, of course, whenever Cecil attacks, other attacking creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. To be quite honest, I don't really care as much about the 4/4 or the trinket text on the 4/4. I just think a single mana 2/3 Death Toucher is good rate on a black X tempo threat. And having him in a deck with a bunch of removal and other stuff from a supporting color seems like he is connecting a lot. And whether you pair him with something like Death Shadow or whatever that 2 mana fake Death Shadow was from
Scourge.
Scourge from like return to Zendikar. I just feel like this is a great turn 1 play in a deck that wants to keep the board clear and find some way to make use of that life loss ability. But maybe even making use of that life loss ability isn't even worthwhile, and you can just play it in mono black aggro for old time's sake.
Can I interest you in a Death Shadow that drives a car?
Oh yeah, the last
ride.
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was actually thinking about the other day. Now you have Cecil, Dark Confidant, and Caustic Bronco all in Standard. So 3 ways to 1 and 2 mana black creatures that help you lose life. You pair that with the last ride, you got a Stew Bruin. Get just like, black interaction, duress, whatever, cut down, go for the throat. That's kind of where like I really want to try this card, pairing it with, the other, like I said, Confidant and Bronco. But even just like in the traditional Dimir midrange, like this seems like a pretty big upgrade to something like Spyglass Siren because it trades up later in the game. If you are, what's nice is that if you are racing, like later in the game, you draw it. If like you've taken some damage, you attack with it once, and then you basically immediately flip it because later in the game your life total is going to be a lot lower. So I like that aspect of it. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a pretty good card. Like Stan said, a 1-mana 2/3 Death Touch, especially in a format like Standard, nothing to scoff at.
Yeah. It's funny. I read this card a while ago and I got really twisted by all the darkness text and the protect and all that stuff. And I didn't even really think about that on rate. This card is totally wild. 1 mana 2/3 Death Touch is just really good.
Oh, yeah.
So
there was that green card. What was the one that had native Delirium? You guys remember that one? That like weird shadow decks used to play?
Wait, to search it up?
No. It's just 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch, Delirium +2/+2. Green. It was like from Shadows of Innistrad or something. I don't remember it.
I don't remember it. But yes, that makes sense. Just give me a 1/1. Just give me a 1 mana threat. That's all we need sometimes. A 1 mana threat.
Yeah. I like it.
Devin, what else do you have on your list?
So what else do I like that we want to talk about? Let's go to Ultima. Ultima Origin of Oblivion. So this one is colorless, so it's 5 colorless for a 4/4 flying legendary creature god. Whenever Ultima attacks, put a blight counter on target land. For as long as that land has a blight counter on it, it loses all land types and abilities and has tap, add C. And then whenever you tap a land for C, add an additional C. So the reason I like this card, and thinking about it more, maybe it's actually not as good as I thought it was. I thought initially that it was enters or attacks, but it is only when it attacks, so it makes it a little bit worse. But I was thinking about this in the context of Eldrazi in Modern, where like if you're playing sort of like the mirror match or some other big mana deck, if you can get this thing into play relatively fast and start attacking with it and just kind of like nuke all their lands, it sounded kind of cool. But it is unfortunately only when it attacks, and also you can't cast it off Temple, which makes things kind of awkward. But then the other upside is that it does make it slightly easier for you to cast Ugin, because Ugin's similar thing, you can't cast it off Temple, but if you get the 5, then the next turn you play your land, you're probably already at 7. You have any, like if you have a Labyrinth already in play, that's going to produce an additional colorless, so that kind of jumps the curve a little bit to Ugin. But I don't know. Maybe it's not as good as I thought it was. What do you guys think? Close or no?
I think it's the awkwardness of the mana number. Yeah, the 5 is like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't really care about Mana Flare that much.
No.
Right? I mean, maybe there's another deck that cares about colorless Mana Flare that you could do, or a different shell on that Labyrinth deck.
Make sure it juices your commands.
Yes. The fact that it has flying is helpful, of course, because then at least if it does survive, you're definitely going to get in there. Is there a colorless deck in Pioneer that could use a card that's this power level? Maybe it's just not, maybe the blight effect is not really worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really a colorless deck. I haven't seen one.
There's no like soul lands to use, even really bad ones. So
there's that really, really bad one. The one you need 7 lands in play.
Yeah, the false god or whatever it's called. Yeah.
But that one's not great.
That's not gonna help.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
You mentioned this for like maybe for Eldrazi. It feels like there's a lot of openers where you can produce 5 mana to cast an Eldrazi spell and still not cast this.
Yeah, because you can't do it off Temple. That's the awkward part, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of a Tron thing then than an Eldrazi thing.
Mono blue Tron.
Okay.
You know what Mana Flare, what likes Mana Flare for colorless?
Tron.
Is Mindslaver.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because your Tron is just +3, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Now we're cooking. Maybe I'm just too caught up on the like nuke their lands thing, and it's more of like you mentioned, this is just a 5 mana flare.
Yeah. I mean, nuke their lands is very cool. It's just, yeah, like you said, I wish it was on when you enter.
Yeah, enters or attacks. Then we could talk.
All right, Ultima, maybe not, buddy. Maybe not Ultima. Devin, why don't you pick another card, because I think we haven't gotten to a ton on your list. I'm looking at one card on yours. I'm curious to see what you think about it. This is Freya Crescent.
Okay.
Legendary creature, Rat Knight. During your turn, Freya Crescent has flying. tap, add red, spend this mana only to cast an equipment spell or activate an equip ability. It's a 1/1. Tell me about what caught you about Freya.
So it's weird because I don't necessarily like this is when I saw this card, it was I want to maybe like a week ago. And this is one of those cards where you need a little bit more context. Like I want to see the rest of the set, see what the rest of the equipments look like. But I mean, a red mana dork like that you can put it. You can have a like a Boros equipment deck, which is the colors that you want to be anyways. And you can be a Boros deck and have a mana dork. It also has flying on your turn, so it wears equipment pretty well. But yeah, the big question is like, what equipment are you getting? So you have this with Cloud, you have the Buster Sword, then you can pair that with like, there's like Blade Hold, War Whip. Trying to think. There's Chainsaw. There's some other stuff that you can maybe play because people
Core
have
Steel Cutter.
yeah,
It
Cutter
ramps your
too.
Cutter.
Yeah, it
in
does
red.
ramp into Cutter. The fact that you can go turn 1 Crescent, turn 2 Cutter, and play a 1 mana spell, that's kind of nice.
That's what I'm thinking about with this card.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, my ideal opener is now that.
Yeah, this triggers.
And then opt
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, I don't see. The thing is, you need a pretty high number of equipment if you're going to put Freya in your deck. Like, you don't want to just have only the Cutters. So I
Right.
do think you'd probably have to be more of a dedicated equipment deck that plays, like that stuff, like Basilisk Collar. Like I said, I'll have to see what the rest of the equipment look like. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about this card with Cutter. But for some reason, I don't register Corey Steel Cutter as an equipment. It's just an artifact to me because I never actually move it for mana.
No,
So
of course not.
I don't register it as an equipment.
Yeah, nobody ever pays the equip cost on Corey Steel Cutter.
No.
Yeah, I think this card is cool. I've heard them talk about the fact that they were trying to add mana ramp to red as an ability, and we've seen that with commons in the last couple of sets. There's like these 3/1s that tap for 2 red, which is like really, really weird.
Yep.
But having a single red that does it for something in a specific scenario is a bit more powerful for sure. So I'll be curious to see if this gets played.
Turn 2 Cutter, trigger it. I'm in.
Yeah. Surprise. All roads lead back to Cutter. Stang.
I really hope this nickname sticks. Stang.
That's great. One of my favorite legends from the original set.
Yeah.
Stang.
I'm having like a little bit of buyer's remorse for some of my cards because I'll just say I had Emet-Selch on my list, but it was just another blood artist. And now that we've talked about Sephiroth, I'm like, that's a better blood artist. So
It is.
who cares about Emet-Selch? Same for Ambrosia Whiteheart. That was on my list. It was kind of a alley-oop for Devon because I wonder, how many pixies is too many pixies? This is just, look, another pixie, 1 white flash for legendary bird. When it enters, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. This one also has landfall that when a land you control enters, Ambrosia Whiteheart gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a 2/2. It's a bird that does not fly, though.
Yeah, you asked me how many pixies is too many. Well, the Esper deck has the capability of playing 12, and they're only playing like 9 or 10. So they already have enough. And I don't know if this is necessarily better than Sun Pro Kieran because the flying on Kieran is pretty relevant. I think more so than the landfall +1/+0 because it's just a ground blocker that gets gummed up, and this is legendary, so you can't have 2 in play, so that could be kind of awkward.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is fascinating to see this phenomena of like, I don't know if you remember, Stan, when we went to that Mark Rosewater panel and he was like, sometimes we get into these ruts where we produce similar cards over and over again. And he's like, right now, Relentless is really popular with the design team. So we have all these Relentless cards that, the ones that are like put any number in your deck that you want.
Yeah.
I feel like they're also kind of really on this 1 and a white rescue mechanic. And they're like, well, now we have too many of them in standard. We're going to take a break from those for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a lot.
I only have one more card on my list, and
Sure.
I don't know if we'll go into it in that much detail either, because I put this in my last pick / don't hate it tier of cards, and that's Emet-Selch, the Unsundered. 1 blue/black for a legendary Elder Wizard. It's a 2/4 with Vigilance. When it enters or attacks, you draw a card, then discard a card. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 14 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform Emet-Selch. By the way, I'll give you one guess which Final Fantasy game Emet-Selch is from.
6.
Final Fantasy 14. He transforms into Hades, Sorcerer of Eld, which is a blue-black avatar, in a 6/6 with Vigilance that has the classic ability Echo of the Lost, which of course states that during your turn you may play cards from your graveyard. If a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Why mention token there? I don't know. Maybe there's some crazy, weird corner cases because tokens technically hit the graveyard before they disappear, but I don't know.
I believe that Rest in Peace has that same line of text. I think it says card or token. So I think that might just be the way it's templated. I don't know. It's weird, but
too many words. Here's why I put this on my list. It's a 3 mana, 2/4 Vigilance. I like that when it enters, it does the thing. Like it enters and it loots. So you don't even have to like wait for anything. And I think the flip side of just being able to play cards from your graveyard, an ability we've seen before, but on different bodies. I don't know. On a 6/6 no less, it just seems like powerful. It's probably commander card, and I'm okay with that. But it stood out to me, and that's why I'm talking about it on my podcast.
It's really not that hard to get 14 cards in your graveyard. Like
I feel like you have to want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're just opt-in.
But if you want to put 14 cards in your graveyard, you can put 14 cards in your graveyard.
You can do it. There's a lot of self-mill in standard too, like Overlord of the Baelmerk. That's kind of the one that comes to mind. But there's like Picklock Prankster, Philology Archaeologist. So I don't know. I could see it in standard. I could see it.
Yeah, I like it as a sort of like low rent necro, where you're like, okay, I'm milling myself, I'm looting and dropping stuff. He's helping me fuel it. I can put stuff in there, and then later on, I have a pretty stocked hand to cast a bunch of extra stuff from my graveyard. And like you said, it's not that hard to flip it. It's a 6/6. It's got Vigilance. Like I could see it being a thing somewhere in like a control deck kind of finisher.
The card that it reminded me of a little bit was Lear, Disciple of the Drowned.
Yeah.
And Lear has the other ability, which is spells can't be countered, which I think is part of what makes it really powerful. But more importantly is Lear gives each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard flashback. And this is like a slightly updated version of Lear. You have to put a little extra work into it, but it still does the thing when it ETBs, which I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again.
There you go.
And also, you can play all cards from your graveyard. Unlike Lear, which is limited to instant and sorceries, this lets you replay creatures or whatever else. Even a land.
All right, well, I have 2 cards left. Since we're coming up on the hour, can I talk about these 2 cards?
Yeah.
You must.
One of them is a card we're familiar with, and that is Dark Confidant, which used to be a $50 card or whatever, and now is a standard mythic once again. Like it's a mythic in this set, right? I'm going to check real quick, but not that it matters.
It's a mythic, but the ones you should be registering are rares. We all know that.
Yeah, exactly. If you can, exactly. The Bobs. All right. What do we think about Dark? I'm not going to talk about it in standard, right? I mean, I imagine this card's probably going to be somewhat powerful in a standard format that has a deck that can use it, whether it's a Jund-style mid-range deck or something else that likes to draw cards. This is probably definitely standard power level.
I'm going to play it.
What about Pioneer? Like, does this bring anything extra to Pioneer? Or is Pioneer just about something else right now? Like, we were talking a minute ago about mono black aggro, like this in a deck with Cecil and a couple of the old school mono black aggro payoffs. You're drawing a lot of cards, you're catching up, you're putting stuff in your graveyard.
I mean,
replaces Copter, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Mono black was what got Copter banned in the first place, and I kind of want to play it with Copter, like Cecil, all those other black 1-drops, Bob, Copter, maybe Stop the Curve at 3, maybe a couple of Lianas there, but I don't know if that's like where the Pioneer format is right now. I don't know if that's what it's about, but yeah, if there was a black aggro deck that was good, I could certainly see Bob being a centerpiece of that deck. I think it's a really good card.
Yeah, I mean, is there a chance that just Jund is good in Pioneer? You know, where we're playing Liliana, the Veil, Dark Confidant, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push. We're just doing all that stuff, and it's just a mid-range deck that's reasonably powered up.
What's our Tarmogoyf?
What is our Tarmogoyf?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
A good 2-drop threat. I'm sure there is one
There probably
that we're
is.
just forgetting.
I'm honestly not, I'm surprised that Tarmogoyf isn't just like standard or Pioneer legal at this point.
I mean, it's probably next on their hit list.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted to talk about Bob for a second. What about Bob? All right, the card that we haven't talked about that a friend of ours texted us about over the weekend, Stan, and then we mistakenly realized that you were not actually the number that he was chatting, and someone said something to us in what I think was Polish and then left the group conversation.
Wow.
This sounds like fun.
Was it Scott? I was just going to ask.
So, summon Knights of the Round. So we haven't talked more about these summons other than when off the top I was like, these cards are wild. So this is a 6 generic white enchantment creature saga knight. As this saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter, sacrificed after 5. And the phases are, the steps are, what are they, chapters? 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this. The chapters are create 3 2/2 white knight creature tokens. 3 2/2s.
That's 12.
The Knights of the Round is a 3/3 indestructible as well. And then Ultimate End. Other creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Put an indestructible counter on each of them for the 5th chapter. Look, I know this is slow.
Very slow.
It's slow even if you, like when it comes into play, it's slow. But is this some kind of creativity target? Or I'm going to get Unmarked Grave and persist this card? Is this some kind of other payoff for decks in Modern that have Archon of Cruelty, perhaps? For certain metas, is this a payoff for creativity in Pioneer? God forbid, I keep talking about Pioneer so much after last week's episode, but you know how it is with cards getting into Modern. But this is not a fair card. But I do think this is a creature reanimation target of some kind. And what it does, if you bring this into play from your graveyard or creativity in, you get 3 2/2s and an indestructible 3/3 that keeps generating more 2/2s.
The context where I could maybe see this in, and you mentioned Pioneer, and there's a deck that people have been playing recently. It's like a mono white, more play to the battlefield deck, and those decks do have a couple of copies of Nykthos in them. So if you're doing like some kind of mono white devotion stuff that you can actually like ramp into this thing with some sort of regularity, I could see it there. Like that's another way to cheat it into play. I don't know if there is a good 7 mana enchantment that you can get for discount, but if there is, you could pair this with Enigmatic. I have to go deep into the card file on that one though.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a new interesting reanimation / cheaty creature target that people are going to try. I was going to say there's Abuelo's Awakening in Standard, but I guess if you're casting Abuelo's Awakening, you should probably just be putting Omniscience into play. Right.
That's the problem with
I've
that.
heard about that. I don't know, Stan, you had a moment of looking intrigued, and now the light has left your face again. Like most sentences, when I start a sentence, you seem interested, and then...
Yeah. Do you want to be creativitying into a removal spell?
I mean, a lot of times you want to be creativitying into the life game is the problem, is what's nice about Archon, right? Doesn't Archon gain you 3 life when it comes into play too?
And the draw and the discard.
Right.
All that stuff. You get it all. That's the... Archon's too good, I think.
Yeah, but you can't kill this. You can kill Archon.
They can path it. I guess nobody's playing path.
You David, you're right.
Static Prison.
You can kill this. I think you can also ignore this.
You might be able to ignore this for a little while because it takes so long to get to V. It takes so long to get to V, you guys.
Yes. Whereas, sometimes Archon has pseudo haste.
Yes.
If they're able to get him in on that step. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, look out for it as a weird animation target. Okay, Devon, Stan and I both cleared our decks. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I guess we can, real quick before we get out of here, we can do Suplex, which is it's not much. It's just a red and a colorless sorcery. Choose one, deal 3 to a creature. If creature would die this turn, exile it or exile target artifact. It's a braid, but the trade-off is it's a sorcery and it exiles. That's the upgrade. Just side grade, I guess I should say. I like it a little bit better. I think the exile is pretty huge in a lot of spots, and especially against Cutter, you're casting abraded sorcery speed anyways. So I think it's pretty good for standard. Not sure about other formats though. Like I don't know if there's exiling. I don't know how relevant exiling is in modern these days. Probably not super relevant.
Yeah, I think the sorcery thing is just a huge hit.
Yes.
There. So I mean, it reminds me a little bit. What was that card that was like deal 3 damage to a creature for a single red, but it was sorcery speed?
Boros card.
Strangle.
Oh, Strangle.
Strangle.
Okay.
That's the card I'm trying to think of.
Yep.
Yeah, Strangle, which was like everybody was like, "We're gonna play Strangle," and then it was like, "Actually, we're not.
The sorcery.
We're not gonna play it." So I don't know. That made me a little curious, but I do think this card will be in the consideration set for a lot of people. I mean, the only problem is Abrade is in Pioneer or in Standard 2, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It was in Aether Drift, right? I think.
Foundations.
Abrade? Foundation. That's right, Foundations. Yeah. So I think Abrade might just be better.
Probably.
But
keep it in mind.
Worth noting, people are talking about that card.
Yeah.
Stan, anything else? Devin, anything else before we?
You know what else people are talking about? Who put my curvy wife into Magic the Gathering on this Tifa Lockhart card?
Okay. Well, we had to have one conversation like this.
True.
I'm gonna get our lawyer on the phone, and then you can say what you're gonna say.
Well, I'm going to say that Tifa's a 1 and a green for a 1/2 human monk with trample and landfall, and whenever a land enters your control, you can double her power until end of turn. That seems pretty good.
I haven't looked in depth into what the combos are here. It's not hard to get 3 landfall triggers in Modern, though, right? Like, it's not very difficult at all. You could definitely set that up. You can probably get to 4 pretty easily, and that's, what, 16, maybe? Say 2, 4,
Yeah, 16.
8, 16 is that, and she has trample. Maybe this is your Tarmogoyf in Pioneer.
Maybe.
It's Tifa.
Well, it's funny because Pioneer, you can play Scape Shift.
Oh, right.
And you can also Scape Shift for... It's awkward because the lands come into play tapped, but you have the Streets of New Capenna fetch lands, which even though they come into play tapped, they still sacrifice. So
Right.
Tifa Scape Shift is just a one-shot in Pioneer. I also like this card a lot in Standard, where you have Monstrous Rage, Turn Inside Out, and the other one that I can't remember. But basically, you have these pump spells, and you combine that with Leyline of Resonance. So the Leyline doubles the spells, double that you double the spell, double pump spell, and then double the power. So I think I think this card is really good. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably should have had this on our list just because it's priced right.
Yeah.
It's a 2 mana card that can win the game. So
Yeah. Plus, Dave, you already have the matching pillow. It's odd that you didn't mention it in your
The
card
body
list.
pillow.
That's
Sure.
right.
Of course. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that wraps up this week's episode of the Dive Down, Stan.
And you know what I'm going to say? If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. Leave us a review on Apple and Spotify as well. Reach out to us on Blue Sky. Find us at The Dive Down. You can email thedivedown@gmail.com as well. Someone emailed us to explain how a combo deck we talked about last week is supposed to work. And it was very convoluted. It's like that mono blue Pioneer deck that we mentioned briefly. But all I'll say is I love hearing people. I love seeing the emails. It was the Rona combo deck. And it's a long email because there's a lot of steps.
We see you and we respect you, but we are not playing that deck. It's a little bit of the happy for you or sorry you had to go through that, but I ain't reading all the steps of Rona combo.
If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also support us through our sponsors. Heavy Play gives you 10% off your first order with promo code TheDiveDown2025 over at heavyplay.com. And our longtime sponsor, Mana Traders, gives you 25% cash back after 3 months of service using promo code TheDiveDown, all one word. And of course, we got the store at divedown.com/store. And of course, support Devin over at twitch.tv/Doomwake. Give him that Amazon Prime sub. You're not using it on anything else. It should really auto-renew.
It should.
Crazy that it doesn't.
I know.
As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and grind to beat the final boss. That's an RPG reference. Sometimes you have to grind to beat that final boss in an RPG. Role-playing game.